Hi, friends. Hello, in the world. Welcome back to this episode of Complaint Free Life. And I am speaking to you from Bishkek. So, the topic that I wanted to talk about today is overworking and how to recognize when you're overworking and when it's a pattern and not something that you do occasionally because every work may require from some time to time that we need to overwork. And I feel like I talked about it a lot in different ways, but today I want to maybe conceptualize it for those of you who feel like they want to look at it as a whole, as a topic. So, overworking as such is something that we are doing to seek some kind of pleasure or some kind of reward, right? And overworking is something that it's an action that is fueled by a feeling, and usually the feeling behind is some kind of a feeling that is we consider as negative, like feeling guilty, feeling obliged, feeling I have to, feeling like I don't have anything else to do, I may as well. So whatever that feeling that you feels to you, that's fueling this overworking behavior. Now, that feeling is coming from that belief, whatever the belief is, that says something like, this is good to do this. I need to do this if I want to keep my job or if I want to perform my job well. I have to do it if um, all the people around me are suffering. I have no choice but to do this because someone else is demanding of me. I have to do this because I get paid a lot, so that's why it's necessary that I somehow justify my salary. So there may be a lot of beliefs behind why you are overworking, right? So you may argue that, well, maybe overworking it could be considered also something good, something that is necessary or something that is normal to do. And absolutely, it may be the case, but I just want you to check with yourself if that overworking is really coming from that noble feeling or it's coming from wanting to be a hero or wanting to be a victim feeling. Because oftentimes that's what happens is that we tend to have this overworking behavior from that feeling of feeling victim. Like, I have no control over this, is how it is, I have to do this, and my work requires me of doing it. Right? That's like the victim mindset of overworking. Another overworking mindset could be of a hero, meaning that I'm the only one who can do it. I can't. No one else can do this if I'm not there. It's a bit like a rescue mindset of I have to rescue, otherwise things will not get done. Um, this type of hero mindset. Now, what happens is that whenever we do this from time to time, it's probably not really noticeable. And it feels like many of us encounter this, and it's part of like maybe it's some kind of an emergency that we have to step in and work more than usual, work on weekends or whatever it is, right? But oftentimes, what we do as humanitarians, unfortunately, is that we make this as a pattern of a normal behavior. We think that this is a normal, in quotes, obviously, but still, we think that this is how it's supposed to be, and it's there is no other way. Especially if we have managers who tend to overwork, then we tend to copy that. Or even if they don't do that, we tend to do it ourselves because of those beliefs that I just mentioned before. And that's why we tend to keep overworking. Now, whenever we're overworking, the consequence usually is we tend to get a temporary hit of dopamine, right? Meaning that we tend to get this rewarding feeling. We tend to get this feeling of being useful, feeling good about it. All of these feelings may come up of overworking, but that's temporary. We know it. And we need to be probably working a lot more and harder in order to keep replicating the same type of dopamine hit. Now, if we don't do that, then our brain will be craving for more and craving for more, and we will put ourselves into the pattern that in order to feel that same level, we need to do the double, we need to do more, we need to do this, we need to do that. Now, whenever you're feeling that, because that's temporary, and also human physiology is not meant to be in that state of mind the whole time, in the tense state of mind and state of emotional being, that cannot last long. And therefore, to recuperate that, we need longer breaks. But because we don't have longer breaks, or we don't allow ourselves longer breaks, therefore we tend to go to our vacations or R&Rs, and we tend to sleep through or power through some type of activity that we think we do, like massages and intensive care, and then we go back to our pattern of overworking again. That's obviously not really counterproductive, because what will happen is that we will be telling our brains and our minds and our bodies that we cannot relax, and we cannot really have the balance. We can only do that in that fluctuating manner, in the radical manners, right? If it goes up and down, we will never really be achieving that balance of having that when to stop and when to rest, and then really rest well on time, and then recuperate, and then go back to work. So we will be putting ourselves in this radical highs and lows, and then because our minds and bodies cannot cope with that, and therefore at some point it will be refusing to serve us. And that's when all the problems may start, some of them that we call burnout, and many other symptoms may come up. And I feel like the humanitarians that I know are not really, so I think they all know that this is what happens. Like, it's theoretically, I think many of us know that this is what happens, and therefore we need to take care of ourselves on time. We shouldn't allow ourselves to be overworking the whole time and making it a pattern the whole time. But I still feel like many of us are not really good at implementing the alternative. And maybe part of the problem there is that the reason why we don't do that is because the dopamine hit that we receive from overworking is very high, that is not allowing really us to go and not overwork, and then just being with the feelings that we have at that moment. Or the alternative we consider very hard, because we consider that if we don't overwork, for instance, then we come home. Oftentimes, we work in very hard duty stations where we don't have family members, and therefore we are coming home and there's no one at home. We don't really have any routine built. We just come home and we're alone. We feel alone. We confront all of our feelings, right? All of our feelings come up, and it's not really pleasant to be sitting with those feelings, and we feel like it's hard to do that. Why would we do that? Over analyzing our feelings is bad, and therefore we tend to overwork in order not to feel that. We continue avoiding those feelings because they are hard in our brain's mind, and that's why we tend to go to overworking, right? Now, you can of course continue doing that, and we all have been there. We have continued doing it, believing that this is the way to go. But we also know that at some point we will want to transition to a different lifestyle. And one of the reasons why people in the humanitarian world want to transition is because of that, because of overworking, overstress, and burnout, and they can't handle it anymore. And therefore, they just want to drop it. They just want to leave that world and just have nothing to do with that world, and then leave it. And then what happens then is that the same pattern oftentimes repeats, which is they go to their homes back home, and then they just stay in the other extreme of doing nothing, and then they realize, oh God, all of those feelings are coming up again. I don't want to deal with them. I need to get something, some kind of a job, and then start doing something, and then we get some kind of a job. Or if we feel like it's not really successful, then we tend to return back to the same place that we left very hurriedly, but then we forgot about it because we now explain to ourselves that, well, the reason why I left last time that I couldn't cope, but this time it's going to be different. And then unfortunately, it will probably not be different either. So, you know what I'm saying? That it's the transitioning that we wanted happens out of this rush decision, this decision that as long as I get out of this misery, I will be fine. As long as I'm not confronted with these people, I will be fine. So we start avoiding and avoiding and avoiding. We get out of this situation. We put ourselves in the very extreme other situation. And then we can't really cope with that extreme other situation either. And then we start bouncing back or bouncing to different circumstances where we tend to again overwork because we feel like we don't really know how else to handle our feelings. So I think I've depicted the problem in detail. So when you are seeing this pattern in yourself, now the question is what to do. The question is what to do is you need to recognize that you are the one doing this overworking. In other words, you need to recognize that whenever you are overworking and you're feeling like it's not up to you, this is just happens to you, or this is just where you are in this circumstance, and in other circumstance you would be different. If you're telling yourself the story, recognize that all of this are the victim story of poor me, I can't help but. And you need to be able to recognize that pattern or that story that you're telling yourself. Another important part to recognize about your behavior is that you are doing it in order to seek some type of pleasure. The problem is that that pleasure is coming at a high cost. And that pleasure is some kind of a reward and recognition that you're receiving and you're believing you receive after overworking. Maybe it's a recognition from your boss, recognition from your coworkers, or you're believing that you feel in a particular way if you overwork, and if you do this, you are believing that you are a hero if you do this, if you are the only one who does it, or if you are the only one who can do it. If you are believing those stories, then it's likely that those patterns of behavior will continue occurring because your brain wants to seek the same recognition, the same feelings over and over again. And higher, the more, the better. Now, we need to recognize that that level of feelings, or those feelings, you can create it without overworking. And that's probably something that your brain will have a hard time believing and believing me. And it's okay because you need to try it out for yourself. Don't believe and take my words. You need to try it out for yourself and find out how you can replicate those reward, recognition, the feeling of hero, feeling of accomplished, whatever the feeling that you're chasing, how can you create it without overworking? Your brain will likely to say in the beginning it's not possible. And it's okay because most of the times our brains will not want to change its used patterns for a long time, right? And there is the reason why we have hard time changing our habits, our patterns, because we have the strong beliefs that this is how things are, this is how it's supposed to be. Now, whenever we believe this is how it's supposed to be, obviously we're not going to be able to change it. So that's why here is important part is that you need to take agency for how you can change that behavior. how you are in charge of changing that behavior. If you are creating this behavior of overworking, you are also able to create the behavior of not overworking. Even if your brain at this point in time may not believe. The questions that you need to ask yourself is, how are you going to do that? And how are you in charge of doing that? Because whenever you glorify the feeling of victim, or whenever you're glorifying the feeling of heroism, then you will always put that above of your own agency of being in charge, right? Because whenever we believe that something is better than what we're trying out, then obviously we will not be doing something new, because we already believe something else to be great. If we believe something else is great, then we're not going to try something new. So that's why you can also ask yourself, why are you glorifying being hero? Or why are you glorifying being in that victim mindset of, I have no other choice but, right? So I know that these are the belief work that you need to be doing, but the important part of doing the belief work is that it has the potential to change your behavior in the long run, rather than you keep repeating the same pattern over and over again and keep having the same result over and over again. And the belief patterns that I've listed, whatever the thing that you're glorifying to be great, and that's why you are doing it, ask yourself, is that really true? Is that really contributing to, excuse me, is that really contributing to how you want to live your life in the long run? If the answer is yes, this is how I want to live, this is how I want to contribute, this is how I want to deliver, this is how I want to show up, absolutely great. It's just that I want you to own it, right? I want you to own that this is how you're choosing to live your life, knowing the consequences of what the consequences might be. For some people, this is maybe just fine arrangement. This is how they want to live their lives, right? But I also happen to know so many humanitarians who tend to make decisions to transition because they didn't know how to handle their overworking mindset, because they didn't know what to do. And with that overworking mindset, they felt overwhelmed, stressed, and because they feel stressed the whole time, they feel like they just want to leave, and they feel like it's only here, and if I can't handle it here, then I need to go somewhere else. Soon to realize that somewhere else they are repeating the same behavior, only in different circumstances. And that's why I would love for you to spare that change of external circumstances. If you don't want to create more stress for yourself, then let's start looking at the cause of why you're overworking and how you want to change that mindset, that belief system. So to sum up, overworking is an action that we take because of a feeling that usually fuels this action. And that feelings is something like feeling guilty, feeling obliged, feeling some sort of I have to. And whenever we're feeling that, it means there is a belief that's very strong holding those feelings. And those beliefs are something like, I have no other choice, I have to do this, I earn too much to not to be doing this, I'm an emergency, I have to, or my boss asked me to, I can't really refuse, or I'm the only one who can do it, I'm the hero, or I'm the victim, whatever the two extremes that you might be thinking of, those things are creating those feelings, which then leading to overworking. And as long as you feel like you cannot control or change that, it won't be changed. And the only way you change it by recognizing that you have the agency to change it, meaning you have the agency to change those belief patterns the same way that you have created consciously or unconsciously before that led to you overworking. And then once you realize that you can change that pattern without changing anything external in the workplace, then you realize how much power you have over all the behaviors that you're currently having, whether it's in workplace or at home. And once you realize that you can change those behaviors if you want to because they're not serving you, then you feel like you hit the jackpot and you know what to do and how to move forward. So that's why, my dears, I really, really hope that whenever you're transitioning, you don't use this overworking as a reason for avoiding your workplace currently. Try to look at your pattern of behavior first and decide how you want to change it now, and then see whether you really want to change your workplace afterwards once you know how to balance your work and how to not overwork. Because if you know how not to overwork and you could already do that at your current place, would you change it? Maybe for some people, yes, for others, no. I just want you to be aware that you don't have to change your work or change your field in order to avoid overworking. You can change your behavior if you think that's not really what you want to have in the long run. You can change to the pattern that you want to, and then never even change the work environment, the field, if you don't want to. Okay. If you have any questions or want to get coaching on this particular topic, please let me know. I would love to coach you. And also, I would love to invite you to the retreat that's coming up in September in Bishkek, 12th and 16th September. I'm so excited that I will be greeting you here. And the deadline is approaching 31st of July. So I'm excited to greet some of you and show you my beautiful country and also have this discussion around transitioning. Okay, my dears, have a wonderful weekend. See you next time.